All right. There we got it. Okay. I didn't have a little switch all the way over on the mic. Okay, let me get out of my system preferences. Okay, we got audio. I'm gonna redo that little intro. That I was just popping the lids off of my paint here, and so I'm gonna show you the paint that I'll be using. We're not gonna do this for a real long time because I did it on the first video, but this is what I'm working from. So when you see me reach down here and go off camera, I'll be dipping into one of these colors, and so these are just my primaries, and I consider all of these primaries, even though it's not your typical red, yellow, and blue that are commonly, or red, green, and blue. If you're more of a technology guy, you might think of those as primaries, but I think of primaries as any color that I can't mix, and so none of these can I get as vivid of a color by some combination of them. I can get a green with blue and yellow, but it'll never be as vivid as just using this green. So that green's a primary. So I've got like a maroon, a red. These are all just wall paints, acrylic, water-based wall paints. And you can see a lot more about that in my other videos and on the FAQ at muraljoe.com. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm looking over here on my monitor screen to see the chat. What do you call it? The live chat. And so I'm very excited to see a lot of you tuning in, repeat viewers from the previous shows. And so when it first started up, I saw Leanne, which I mispronounced your name multiple times in previous videos. So thanks for tuning in right away there. I'm honored to have you all joining me to continue this painting. So I'm going to get started right away. And what I was saying when the microphone was off is that I was cut a little bit short the previous session in the last video because it just wasn't quite dry enough. Those of you who are watching, you remember I was using a lot of dabbing techniques, and I got some cool looking effects from that. It was a little bit slow going though because it wasn't so dry. Well, now it's had 2 days to dry, and so I can really just smear color all over this. And so that's the first thing that I'm going to do is start putting color all over this sky. So I want to make sure that you've got a real good view. I'm only using one camera. I don't want to be trying to do multiple views with multiple cameras while I'm painting. So I'm going to move this around a little bit as I work to make sure that we can see as good as possible while I'm working on different parts of this. And so what I'm going to do is add some magenta first, I think, because if I remember right, I wanted to do a lot more magenta up in here, but it was just kind of mixing and getting kind of gray. And so the way I'll do that is I'll put water on first because and this paint, this Sherwin-Williams paint, they don't sponsor me, but man, it is very durable paint. I could pressure wash this painting and it would not get damaged. I guess that depends how close I got with 2000 psi, but maybe I'm exaggerating. It's very strong. I can scratch it, I can scrub it. I don't have to worry at all about damaging this painting. So this is something I love about taking the wall paints to a canvas. It's super durable. And so I've got water that I just scrub onto the surface. And so what that does is it buys me time when I go to it again with color and just start smearing this around. So there was no way I was going to do that last week or a couple days ago. With the paint being freshly applied, it would have pulled off a ton of it. But I still need to get off of this pretty quick if I want the color to be nice and even. It's going to start pulling itself off as I apply it if I go too long. So I'm going to put some more. Look, the star turn that color now. So I'll go in here around the edge of the cloud. I'll just have to repair the edge of the cloud a little bit, which is fun. I like to paint clouds, so I'm not sad about the task of painting more clouds. That'll be fun. And so now I've got my secret weapon that I'm going to pull out for ultra fast dry time. And that is a blow dryer. And so watch, I'm going to go like this. Almost there. Almost there. Takes hardly any time at all. So a layer this thin, I mean, it dries as fast as a little bit of water off of a rag dry. It's really fast, seconds. And so working this way is going to allow me to do a lot to this picture. So I'm going to my water bucket. I keep for those of you that maybe didn't see when I showed this the first time, I've got a water bucket down here that I'm dipping into. So every time you see me reach down there, I'm just reaching in to re-wet my brush. I do that pretty frequently. I get the brush wet and I go to a towel and wipe it a few times on that just to keep the shape. I'm real particular about keeping the shape of it. And I like to start right out with wet bristles. I don't go straight to the paint. I go to water first because then it doesn't hit dry bristles and form like an annoying crust on there. So I start right out with the wet brush. Now this is ready for another layer, just like that. I can do it again, but this time I want to try it with a brush, and I want to see what kind of a difference it makes. So let's do water first, and now I'm going to get that magenta. I'm going to do even more up in here. Now the difference between a rag and a brush, I think that the rag is able to probably more evenly distribute a layer where so a brush has the bristles and I can go across it real softly. And let me try a bigger dry one now too. I could probably get it a lot smoother this way. Not that that's going to really be seen very much, but it'll make my color more vivid because it's not, close up. You're not looking at a bunch of little dots of dark pigment that's spaced out. You're looking at evenly spread thin pigment that's being lit up from the lighter color underneath. And that's where you get the most vivid color. Just like the printing system, the CMYK printing always layers the colors over a white base in order to get the brightest colors possible. And so I can borrow that same strategy and layer my colors the same way. So I'm just looking for little spots. I can see where, it's kind of watery, and I can see some streaks in the paint. Oh, it kind of pulled off when I did that. So here's what I'm going to do. All right. Now, I'm thinking that I need more green down here, and I'm going to add more white too. So actually, before I add the green, I'm going to do white. So I'll do another layer of white down in here because I always like it in pictures when you can see, especially, I was looking at a lot of pictures of long exposure Milky Way galaxy on the horizon pictures, and you can see a lighter bluer turquoise horizon, and I loved the look of it. So I'm going to use some white, and I'm not going to go Milky Way galaxy because I have no idea how. I'm just going to put some white in this water that I just put on there. And then I'm just going to massage the edges of any of my brush strokes that I see and just see what happens. Because whatever it covers over, I know it's going to replace it with something else good. So just going to look for the spots that look too much like brush strokes and not enough like moving clouds. And here's a fun thing to do is you know, get like some movement by doing something besides just the even scribbling of a brush. All right, that's cool. I'm going to do some more up here. Come up here and put some more white in here. I'm going to look for the areas that are already light. I kind of went on that spot here. I'll just take it off. Let's put some on. It's fun just moving this around and having fun once I have a nice dry base that I'm sure is not going to get damaged by it. You know, something that I was mentioning in the last video was lines. I love lines, and I always try to create interesting lines in the picture. And what I mean by a line is something like a dotted line where you have items in a row, and it causes you to see that row. You see that traveling line like this here. You know, I put that in near the end. And so when I'm trying to do the same thing in here, just looking for things that already draw my eye to connections, and then I'm thinking I'm gonna build that connection even more. So as this is drying, I haven't blow dried it, so it's staying cool. The temperature stays cool. It's still moist. When I look at it this way, I see the glare of the window light, and so I can keep manipulating that. And as it gets thicker, as it gets drier, it's going to start leaving some pull marks. So when I first put it on, it doesn't do this as much, but as it gets thicker, if I do this, kind of like when I did this with my hand and it left those streaks, but here it'll start to build up, kind of like washboards or ripples in the sand. You know, they, for some reason, they pile up on each other and you get these ripples. And so it's kind of fun to just see what I can do by pulling those different directions. So here's one kind of going this way. Watch, pull it that way. Pull this way. Got some pretty wild looking shapes in there. And I'm just gonna stop messing with it because I think that's real interesting. So I'm gonna blow dry it. See if it's faster if I blow it sideways. I've been working on it and stuff with it. Almost done. I was reading the comments while I was blow drying. So can you give a tutorial, Fun Maze says, on how to paint lavender fields? I can't do that right now, but I can give you a quick tip on painting lavender fields. You know, any kind of flowers, you need color in the shadows. Don't shadow flowers black or anything else, just use color. And then do little highlights. And then you can look at my video on how to paint flowers. Just look up my videos on how to paint flowers. And as you get closer to a horizon, you scrunch all your shapes real tiny, just little dots of highlights. I even used this exact same strategy in that video where I'm painting flowers to get the brightest colors possible. I'm telling you, the answer is in perspective, where you have big, broader shapes at the bottom and flattened, tiny little shapes toward the horizon, and color for shadows. And I'll remember that for future videos as well. That would be kind of cool to do a field of flowers under this, but that's not the original plan. I'm going to stick with what I was going to do. I think yellow would be cool in here. Don't you think yellow would be neat? Let's try yellow. Now this is kind of experimental because I don't actually know if I just keep blow drying and painting and blow drying paint. I don't know if it might eventually start pulling soft. I don't think it will though. We're going to find out. So let's take some yellow and go to these brighter spots. And I need to do it with some water. Oh, that's too much water. Get my towel. And get more yellow. I should have did water first. You know, it's always good to do water first. Here, let's dab it with red. There we go. Now we got some yellow. Look, I can just, yeah, it takes it off a little bit if I really am aggressive with it. So I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be careful, but not crazy careful, because it's okay if I get a few little dark spots of it getting removed. Put more yellow there. I'm going to go in here and put some. Boy, that's really green, isn't it? I like green. Do like green. All right, let's do this. Let's go blue down in here. You know what's funny about that is I got distracted. I had said I'm going to do the light turquoise horizon, just like they have in all those Milky Way galaxy pictures. And then I saw a can of yellow paint. There we go. Let's get some color in there. I want to see more of that purple over here too. I love that purple. Magenta is what I used for that. And so right in here, let's just grab a little bit of this and I try to move fast because it's more even if I move fast. Now, I did get a message from, who was it? Epitome Hawk sent me a message about paint application. That's a common challenge. I'm going to go over that. I'm going to talk more about paint application in order to get the most out of blending time, you know, because I know from many emails and messages that that's a difficult thing. Okay, I'm going to hit this with the blow dryer again and maybe just do a couple more quick layers and then move on. Really good. It's getting hot. Man, I could do this all day. It's fun when you have, when you have that satisfying confidence that your work and your process is producing what you're trying to do. I understand that painting is not so fun when you're not seeing results, but I'm having the greatest time looking at all of these colors in here. It gradually formed this complex thing with details that I never planned to make. Okay, so I want it to be brighter down in here strategically to see my horizon better. So I'm going to do one more pass with white. And I'm just using this towel now because I want to quickly get lots of white in there. And I'm going to use areas of the towel that have less paint on it to kind of remove some of it. I'll grab a brush. I'm just trying to mix it up, just not do the same technique everywhere. In the end, I just want to go multiple directions with multiple techniques so that some shapes come out that seem interesting. And I just want this down here to be brighter. So more white, get that all to be brighter. Maybe some more down in here too, I think it'd be good. So where's that rag? Let's get a little more of that white. I'm dipping that, I just dipped that towel, just the corner, in some white. And I'm going to come in here and put it in there. Now I dipped it in water. So I think that it's very helpful to always work a small enough area that you've got time to mess with it and manipulate it before it dries. If I go too big too fast, then I will lose control. If I am trying to control which edges I can see, where I'm smearing the paint, if I am wanting to control it more, then I need to give myself, a small enough work area. Well, that's kind of cool, leaving a dark spot right there. I like that. Kind of looks like it swoops around a little bit. Okay, then I want to put a little bit more up in here. So I'm going to go up here and go water first. I'm trying to finish my coffee before it gets cold. Okay. It does make me shake a little bit worse, but forget about quitting coffee, man. Just forget about it. Okay. Water. Look how the colors get. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It feels like the colors get a little more vivid with the clear coat on. Okay, now I just barely dipped that brush in the paint. See that little tiny edge right there? And what I'm thinking is that it'll be fun to try to create some perspective in here of like maybe some clouds going side to side. And I'm going to make some gradients in this direction. I'm going to wipe it this direction, but not the other way. Do another one right under that. See what I'm thinking here? Because I think it'll make like a cool perspective to it. Just like, you have overlapping hills. So I'm just going to put like, maybe this will look like overlapping clouds kind of coming toward me. So I'm going to do a little bit more in there. Actually, I wonder what had happened. This is pre-mixed watered down white that I used to splatter all the stars for those of you that didn't watch the first one. And so I'm going to dip my brush in that. So this is much thinner paint. I just want to see what's going to happen. It travels much more smoothly. I could probably do a lot more with it. So if you do this and you come up with some awesome looking shapes, send it my way. I would really love to see it, because I'm really just inventing as I go when it comes to shapes here. I just thought, this seemed like a decent idea. And I'm trying to just identify the shapes I like and build more shapes in those same directions that I like. Kind of like how these colors swoop down and up again. Right there. I'm going to do a little bit more with that watered down white. Look, I see something in here going kind of this way. I don't know if any of you saw that too, but I just felt like it was like the colors were following that path a little bit. Okay. Oh, I think it'd be fun to go. Okay. So I'm getting real creative, but I want to run with this for a little bit because I just feel like this will look cool if I go like this. Make that run off that way. Then I'm just going to get rid of anything that looks like a brush stroke and not a little cloud. Let me get another dry brush. I haven't used this brush yet. So pulling out a dry brush, I think, is a real good technique. I'm holding off on the blow dryer until I see shapes that I really like. It's starting to dry. It's not moving around quite as easy. I want to soften these edges a little bit. Make it a little more subtle. I think when you're trying to do something like somebody else, I try to steer away from copying another set of formations that I've seen for the concept of a picture, because it stands in the way of my creative process so much of the time. So if I just look at the principle, I try to identify the universal patterns. In everything I look at, I try to say, well, what are the patterns that they all have in common? That's what I want to learn, so that I can think about those patterns as I'm creating my own. And I always feel like I like my work better when I give myself that freedom. So, if you strive to copy this composition, more power to you. I hope it comes out amazing, but let me encourage you to take liberty to do your own experiments, moving the paint around and making these layers with your own ideas. Okay, I feel like it needs a few more splatters. We need layers of stars, so a few more splatters will be good. I'm going to grab this brush that's already wet, and I'm going to do the old spin in the bucket trick. This is my spin in the bucket. You put it down there, and like you're trying to make a fire. That's how I dry out my brush. So let's go back over here. Move that camera. And now I just barely dip the brush in this. I'm not going to load it up. I'm checking out the monitor screen to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and then we just flick it onto there. Oh, it got thicker over the course of a couple days. Let me get a little more paint on there. Oh, there we go. So you can experiment with more or less water. I'm dipping in there again. I'm gonna let it soak into the bristles a little bit. So the longer you let it soak into there, the less likely it is to make giant splatters. So if I want a lot of tiny stars, I give it a second to soak into those bristles and then get close and really jam the bristles against my hand to get more of those little flecks. Okay, I'll do a couple more. Maybe one more layer of that. There we go. All right, that's cool. Maybe just a little bit more. I'm going to get more down low. I'm going to stir a little more water into this. So let me go to that water bucket. I'm going to get the brush a little more wet. Stir the paint a little bit. See if I can get more splatters that are also, oh yeah, there we go, look at that. Lots of splatters by watering it down a little bit. And I want to put them down here, so I've really just got this lower sky loaded up with light color to make the edges of my objects pop. So I'll do lots of them down there, you know. Okay, blow dryer. Let's make sure that's nice and dry. Then I'm going to hit it with some blue. I'll dab it. Looking for the off switch. So once I have this nice bright base, oh yeah, I was going to do some blue. Then I want to show you a real fun thing that you can do where I'll put back the dark space in there. Do these latex house paints behave like acrylics? Anyone know? That's a great question from Bel Riosi 2000. I'm so bad at saying these names. They are very similar to acrylic paints, but just think of acrylic paints that you've added water to, and that stay that way. They don't. You know, if you add water to your normal acrylic tubes, then maybe the performance of them goes down. But these have a nice smooth viscosity. They flow out real easy and maintain that thinner viscosity, but very similar. So just think of working with thinned acrylics. But if you buy the more industrial grade paint like I'm using here, then it has a very durable hard finish that the tubes don't have. You know, you'll have to be really cautious with tubes of, oh man, I wanted to do water first. I'm talking here. If I was doing this whole project with tubes of acrylics, I think it wouldn't work. I wouldn't be doing this right now. I'd be at risk of just destroying that sky if it was the tubes. They just don't have as much hardening material in them. Oh yeah, nice blue. I can never mix a blue that bright. It would never happen. I'm not talking about acrylic tubes. I'm just talking about at all. Layering blue over this light color. Nothing else will be as vivid blue as that. Let's make some of these kind of blue. Got more purpley color in there. There, now I've got my light blue horizon, kind of a turquoise. I like that color. This area got kind of real grainy on me down here, but you probably don't even see that on camera. Resolution's probably not quite that fine. I am doing backup recording. I got another camcorder rolling behind this one. Hopefully I'll get some more detailed footage if it comes in handy in the future. Okay, so I want to show you this trick before I move on to the snow on these mountains. And so what I'll do, one more blow dry. I want to do this. One more blow dry. And now watch what you can do with a little bit of black and some water. I don't know if you remember me talking about split patterns ever. I'm just looking at comments real quick, see if there's any important ideas I need to talk about. 10:35 p.m. here in Ireland, and delighted to catch the live stream. All right, thank you, War Robot Spot Killer. Love the username. Fun Maze 140 in Dubai. Wow, man, thanks for tuning in from everywhere, guys. Brazil. Hey, I see someone from Brazil. I almost wore my shirt because I needed a light colored shirt for just to not make the exposure of the camera go crazy. And I got a Lamar shirt, a soccer shirt that my friend Daniel gave me. But I'll wear that in another video. I decided, no, I don't know if that's the right one for the mood of this picture right now. Then I was reading, I guess soccer season got a big old delay because of the virus. Everything did. So that's a bummer. I was going to put dark splits in the sky. So again, I want to use water on this. So I'm going to get one of my rags. I'm going to kind of find the unpainted part of it because I've been using these to put paint on there. So now I'm going to re-wet the surface, and watch this. I'll find an already darkish area, put some water on it, and then I'll get some pure black. And I don't need much for this effect. We're just going to make a split in the sky right there. And let's make a couple more. Let's make one here. Let's make one here. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to make them pointing to each other. So where these ends go, I don't want another one like right here. I guess I could, but it always looks more natural if I kind of stagger them. And then watch, I can connect a couple together, turning them into little Ys where they kind of point this way. So I just make sure that none of the points point to another point. I don't make the points come right together, but I offset them wherever they go. And so now I'll go to one side of it, watch, blend that, go to the other side of it, blend that. And now that tiny bit of gradient on there causes it to be negative space in the cloud, and there's water on the surface. Well, I like the way it just comes to this edge and then stops. Boom. I like that. Okay, I'm going to do some more of these. Let's just do a few more little more spots on there. Maybe up in here would be a good spot. Look at this. Put water on it. Get a little bit of black, just barely on the tip of the brush there. And then somewhere where it seems like I'll see it, let's make a little Y shape. Common split pattern. Make another little Y there. See how I didn't make them pointing to each other, to the points? Then I'll just try to do some little scribbles to make it feel more random. Okay, put some in there. I get these nice dark splits in the clouds by doing that. And then maybe I'll put some, I need a nice dark spot where it really opens up. So I'm just going to reapply black up in here and put little fingers of it coming that way. Maybe some black up in here. Now I'm not really doing the little splits. I'm just putting patches of black to just make edges. It just kind of had an absence of edges in a lot of those areas. I need water now, though. It's not going to look nearly as nice if I'm doing this on a dry canvas. At least not to be. To me, it really, really looks nice to me if I do it on a canvas that's got some water, got moisture on the surface. So I'm going to make sure that I work in the areas that have that. Now you got to be careful when you end up loving a technique, because the temptation to just do it everywhere is hard to resist. And that's like not doing it at all. Let's put a few little spots in here. It's gonna bleed out. It's hitting water right now, so it's a sharp line when I first put it on, but the edges are gonna bleed out like watercolor. I am trying to aim for already shadowed areas when I do that. Just because, like I said before, I don't want to equalize everything. I want to make differences. So I'm not looking for the areas that don't have any to do it here. I've already chosen this area. Okay, this is the cracking apart area. So I'm not going to just do that here and here and here, because then it might look awesome. It might look awesome. Let's just try some. Feel like showing off this line might be a good thing to do. Let's go like this. So here the black is real transparent, and it's not completely covering over areas like it did there. And I think it's cool to use some black over the stars too, just the same way I put color on a lot of stars, just putting black on some of them to make distant, faint stars, I think is also a good move. So watch, I'll just put some water and black over some of these stars here to just darken them. And it doesn't really do much doesn't really make a huge difference, except that when I flick this with more white, those white dots are going to be in the front now. So I'm just darkening stars. Okay, so now watch when I grab some of that white and flick it again. Where's my flick brush? Oh, in the water. Here we go. Hang on. Okay. We're dipping in the white again. Here's my pre-mixed star paint. And we're going to go like this. And when I hit this spot, nothing happens. Okay, let's try again a little sooner after I dip. There we go. Yeah, now those bright spots really show up because what's behind them is darkened. Oh yeah, perfect. And look at that line with that bright star. Love it. A few more white ones, and I'm done. Okay, now let's do some mountains. I'm going to repair this cloud, but I want to move to the mountains because I really want this video to be about that. And I want to give those of you that are wanting to see that the opportunity to check out early and not watch me repair the clouds. So we're going to do some snowy mountains. I'm going to adjust the shadow color. So I really like, something that's valuable to do is just do a real quick, working on a study, a quick study. That's the kind of stuff you learn in school doesn't come to mind quickly for me. But this was the first video. This was the first live video. And I love the shadow color on those mountains a lot more than this kind of maroon color. And so that's handy for me to have done that as a little quick study so that I can go right to that on this bigger painting now. So I'm thinking that I'm just thinking, which brush do I want to use? Let's just use a new brush. Go to the water first, and I want blue. I want the shadow to be kind of blue. And I'm thinking that I'm just going to do my typical shadow color. I use it for clouds, snow, all kinds of stuff. So it's a dark blue-gray. And so I can get a blue-gray by mixing red and blue. And I guess it's a blue-gray violet. I guess it's more violet because of the red in it. But what the red also does, it really cancels out a lot of the vivid blue tone. So I'm very liberal with the paint in order to give myself time to manipulate it. So watch this, a brush load of blue. I'll do that again so you can see me put it on. A brush load, I dip the bristles in there. It looks like, let me make sure the camera can see that. And then I just unload one side, go to the spot next to it, unload the other side. And then the brush doesn't have nearly as much paint on it. And I'm ready to go into a can of paint again and not put a bunch of my blue paint in my red. So look, when I dip in this red, look, there's not a big puddle of blue paint in there. And so then I'm going to go over here and do the same to that side, you know, and then I'll do it again. I'm going to go 50-50 on the red blue. I really use a lot of paint. And so even if this doesn't come out great for you, what it will do in your practice is give you lots of practice. The paint lets you just move it around like playing in the mud. You know, the way you get better at arriving at results you want is by coming to a million results, by doing a million different little tests. And so giving yourself time to mess with it. That's one load of white. I'm going to do another load of white. Now I'm just going to start running it all together. And by putting it directly on my canvas, I buy myself even more time because it hasn't dried a little bit on a mixing palette first. So I'm going to do an area in here like this. So I'm grabbing white, grabbing blue, because these areas are kind of uneven. See that? So I go back and forth. And as I go back and forth, they start to even out. So I just hit really different spots back and forth, and everything starts to even out. Okay, now I like this much better for a shadow color. And I'm going to bring that over here. Let's put a little more of it on. So whenever I'm fighting an edge, you know, I don't want to be trying to get a straight edge, but it's not happening. That means there's not enough paint. So I'm going to put more paint on. I'm going to put that same mix. And the more times I do this, the more familiar I am with what it's going to take. And then I come up here, and then that edge just comes right together for me. No big deal. I get that nice sharp edge because I've got plenty of paint. So I'm bringing the peaks up just a little bit higher. And it's going to darken when it dries as well. It's going to be a little bit darker. And it's really not important probably to evenly mix it. It probably looks better if I don't mix it evenly. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just being creative with the line. And you can also just get water. So what I just did off camera, I want you to see this. Look, watch this little, sorry for the shaky camera. Just this, there's water in this bucket, okay? And I just do this little dunk like that. It's just a little dunk. But then when I go up here and I start working this edge, that water's on the brush, and it's real easy for me to do a real clean edge. If I'm trying to do real clean edges, if it's time to do that. I'm not saying we always need to get those super sharp edges. It's just nice to be able. Okay, let me fix our view. Why don't I just leave it down there for a little bit since we're doing mountains? You can see my paints. Let's do that. Okay, now I want some snow, and the snow is going to take on the same violet light that the shadow does. So shadows really change color as they go distant in an atmosphere. And so for my shadow snow, I'm going to just let it mix with this, and I'm going to put it all over this mountain. So, you know, what I'm going to do is just roll my brush around and make little swoopy lines that I think look cool. Right now, I'm not being too careful to make them in any particular shape. But once I have them in there, snow valleys tend to finger upward toward the peaks. And so, you know, if you're doing rocks protruding out of the snow, then if you're working with the rock color, or just say the mountain color, then you might taper little shapes going down into the snow. If I'm working with the snow, I'm going to mix it into that, and I might taper these upward wherever these sections are, upward any direction. I don't want it to look like a math project, so I'm going to make them just go upward in any direction. And really, the way I do the light and shadow is going to have a much bigger effect on this than what shapes I make these patches of snow. So now I'm strategically going through and looking for the whitest area. I don't want white snow. I got to save the white for anything that is actual light. You know, I've got light sources here. I want the stars to really pop out in my picture. So if I make the snow equally bright, that's not going to be as nice looking. My stars will no longer look as illuminated. My snow, it will overtake the picture. Okay, so now we're just mixing this shadow color with that white. And because I was so generous with the amount of paint, it's easy for me to come in here. By the way I'm manipulating that paint is with this long end of the brush. I do this most of the time, and I discussed this in previous videos. I connect to the canvas like this, and I use that point right there. It's that lower point, and look at the little lines that I'm painting on my hand. So this is what I do most of the time, because if I turn it over, it's hard to connect just a small part of the brush and I get big shapes. It's hard for me to control my details. And so I'll turn it over this way and it bends just slightly. And I did find, I don't get sponsored by any product, but I did find that Purdy seems to do a better job at this. Maybe something about the way the bristles are tapered, maybe it's the stiffness of the bristles. I don't know, but when I pulled out a Wooster, tried to do the same thing, it didn't distribute the paint as nicely as the Purdy. Wouldn't that be funny if I was sponsored? You know, when I paint, I need the best tools. That's why I use Purdy. Maybe they should pay me, huh? Okay, so let's put some snow patches in there. And now here's how I'm going to highlight it. I'm thinking that I want to do this while it's still wet, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking I might go over here and do more of that snow in here. No, I think it's going to be cool if it blends. So, you know, I'm deciding, well, do I want to see a lot of hard edges? Or if I get on this now, then I'll get some blending and some nice gradients where maybe it gradually goes into the light. So I'll leave this brush down and I'll pull out another brush. So this one already has white. That's a good option. And for the bright snow, I'm thinking about where my light's coming from. So I'm going to orient the light. Some light is hitting this cloud somewhere, you know. So I think it's going to look good if I make it go this way. I'm not trying to be too exact, too lifelike on my light and shadow model. It's okay if it breaks some rules of nature as long as it looks pretty. So I'm just using this as a mixing palette at the moment. And what I'll do is put some orange in there. I'm thinking orange, but what I want to show you, this is something fun. This has so much blue in it that if I just use black, I'll just turn this into a gray. And when I do that, this color will actually look kind of orangey when I go up here. It actually doesn't. Okay. I guess if I did it more blue, it would. Okay. So this will become a highlight color. However, not a very extreme one at all. That was a real fail at demonstrating that concept. We're going to have to save that for another video. Let's do red and yellow and get it orange. I need a brighter highlight. So red, yellow. There we go. And then let's get lots of white. So if I go over here and do the left side of this, it becomes a valley because light coming across is going to hit that left side. And so if I if I make my snow look like valleys, it's gonna look probably more three-dimensional on my mountain. So what I'm going to do is just strategically come through and try to hit all of the left sides and maybe the more upward facing edges. So maybe left to bottom, anything on the left or the lower side of a brush stroke. I'm just going to go through and hit that. And then maybe I'll just put a big patch of it up high, because we don't want this to just be like a polka dotted mountain. So this is a little bit tricky, not putting the light real extremely to one side or the other. Much easier to just say, okay, light is on the right, shadows on the left. But here, I'm actually trying to make it just a little bit to the right, coming from this way. So maybe I don't go too extremely to one side of each little spot. Maybe I stay a little bit toward the center, but kind of hug the left side as I'm putting the highlights on. There we go. I'm going to get a little more white. I can make that a little bit brighter. Yeah, so I've kind of got light on this side, and then I've got shadow on that side, so that kind of makes it dip like this. And yeah, so this makes me think of a question that might be out there is, well, so how does it create a valley, instead of so you put light on the left side, you got shadow on the right side. What causes it to look like a three-dimensional valley as opposed to an uprising mound with the light coming from this side? It's the shape. The answer is the shape. I've got brush texture that is swooping, and that's telling the rest of the story. So like I've said before, two things telling the same story is what's going to give me a much more believable picture. I just want to get more than one thing telling the same story. So I've got the shape saying these are valleys, but then to make it extra believable, I make the color tell the same story. Okay, so now I'm thinking that that's enough highlight. I don't want to see a whole lot of it. I don't want to go crazy with highlight. So now it's time to go back to my shadow color. So let's do a little more of this here. More of my blue and red, and finish off these mountains. Blue right there. Let me make sure that you guys can see everything here. Let's move the camera just a bit this way. And so I'm going into my blue, and then I'm going to put red on here. Let's do a big old blob of the red. And let's do some more blue. And I am wondering a little bit as I'm looking at this. I'm wondering, well, did I go a little bit too purple on that mountain? I'm not sure. I might adjust it, but we'll see. I'm going to give it a chance, see if it looks good when I complete this horizon a little bit more. So this is bluer here, this is redder, so I'm going back and forth like this, just to even out the color a little bit. All right, let's get more red, put that over here, get more blue, put this here, and a little bit of white. That wasn't as much white as I put in the others. Now I'll get a little bit of that water, so I'm just going junk like this, just dunk it in there. I don't submerge it, I just dip the bristles halfway in. And then when I go up here and do these edges, makes much sharper edges for me. But I want to wait until I've got a pretty consistent mix, because, I don't want to have to mix my color and try to do these little edges, try to correct them later. So if I come up and do little details that I like with the color that I don't, it ends up being a waste, you know. Putting a little more white because it seems a little dark. This mountain just keeps getting bigger and bigger.